What you saw in 16 was that less of a percentage were doing management fee offsets for fees and expenses that the operating partners were generating. And I think that's because they documented and disclosed it. And I think you could see that across the board, that in 14 there was probably more of a leaning to put everything through the investment advisor as opposed to the fund. Now I think it's kind of swung a little bit more where you're getting more allocations to the fund because they've documented and disclosed to the LPs. And just going back to the operating partners for a second, that was a major focus for the SEC when they first came in and looked at it. And the operating partners sometimes weren't even being paid by the investment advisor. They were maybe on retainer, or they were just listed as additional experts to help them do a better job with the portfolio companies. Now what we're seeing is there's more disclosure on the operating partners. There's more disclosure on what they're getting paid, who's paying them, and where the dollars are coming from. Another thing that came out of the survey is that the investment advisors with larger AUM, assets under management, were more likely to charge the advisor some of the expenses than some of the smaller funds. One of the reasons is they can afford it. The second is they'd rather not have a questionable issue with the SEC, where a smaller fund doesn't have that luxury or leeway. So they probably would spend more time documenting why it was appropriate for them to charge the fund than not, as opposed to the larger funds. Another thing that came out is no matter what the issue was on a regulatory error side, small or large, all the funds charged the investment advisor and didn't run the expenses through the fund. So they realized that it was an error on their part, that there was an issue. So if the SEC came in and looked at something, all the legal cost, any other costs that are associated with dealing with the SEC was run through the investment advisor. I think the surprise was that there was movement from 14 to 16 in terms of how certain expense items were dealt with, and also the fact that a lot more funds were adjusting their LPAs or creating a policy and procedure for fees and expenses. The fund managers need to make sure that they have all those compliance policies in place and be able to document why something was allocated a certain way, and also make sure that that was disclosed to the LPs if it was a questionable item that wasn't in the limited partnership agreement or in the fee and expense policy. So that's one of the most important things you can do. Transparency with the LPs, so whether that's creating a limited partner advisory board or constant communication with the LPs is very important in order to make sure that there were no issues. A lot of the communication from the SEC was that the LPs were totally unaware of what was going on. So that was one of the reasons why they had such hefty fines on some of them. They could talk to all their service providers, so talk to their attorneys, talk to their accountants to find out what's going on in the industry, what they're seeing, what kind of changes maybe they need to make in terms of how they're handling their fees and expenses. Attend industry conferences, find out what their peers are doing, talk to people that have been audited, what they've gone through, what types of things they can expect if they haven't gone through the audit yet, so they can get themselves in a better position for that. Maybe run a mock SEC exam. So a lot of funds have done that already to get themselves prepared and ready. I think everybody strives to get to perfection. There may be certain things that slip through, but hopefully if your compliance manual's in good order and everything is being followed, that those things that slip through are probably minor and won't cause a major issue.